And we are back on another exciting episode of Starfleet Boy, where we have a casual and informal. I don't know if we're actually back. Hold on, now we're back on
Are
another.
we back?
We're back. We're back on another exciting episode of Starfleet Boy, where we have a casual and informal discussion about Star Trek, focused currently on Star Trek: The Next Generation, and when I can get my act together, Doctor Star Trek Discovery as well. This
I
thing
thought you,
can't
I
keep
thought you were going to
falling.
say Enterprise, but you've
We are.
disappointed me.
Well, no. We have a we have an enterprise, emerging enterprise interest as well.
I'm
I
glad.
no, me too. Actually,
I'm
I didn't.
glad. At
I don't know.
last.
This is why rewatching can be a really great and important thing. So as you can see, the setting has changed. This is my temporary recording studio. It's my parents' bedroom on Risa. I've relocated to Risa.
Wow.
Yeah, where you are currently right now.
I don't think I'm on Risa now.
Yeah. Oh, where's the TARDIS today?
The TARDIS today, it's nowhere near Rice.
Well,
It's
okay.
what is that
That's fine.
shirt you're wearing, by the way?
This is a concert shirt that I bought when I went to the Bell and Sebastian concert in 2003, 2004.
Oh, wow.
Yeah,
That's a
my
cool
pin,
shirt.
my Star Trek pins. As you can see, I'm Section 31 today. Black Ops. No no official Starfleet designation
Uh-oh, you're
today.
undercover.
Or I've gone rogue.
You've gone, oh no. Rogue
um,
Starfleet boy.
oh my gosh, there's a rogue everything, so why not? There could be a rogue Starfleet boy as well.
Why not?
But one good thing is this is my old captain's chair, and
Oh,
so
yes, it is. I recognize it.
which has been very nicely taken care of by my parents.
The parental
But
units.
once you get it into the rank of admiral, you don't really fly a starship anymore. So this thing's gonna annoy the heck out of me. It keeps falling out of
Do
my
you need
ear.
that?
I kind of do. Otherwise, I'll hear you in the recording.
Oh,
See, it would be. I don't know. I
well,
don't
you're
know.
gonna have to constantly you're just gonna have to do the Uhura thing.
Yes, that's why she does it.
That's why she does
Now
it.
I
You have to do the
understand.
Uhura thing. Captain,
Michelle
I'm
Nichols.
receiving
I understand now.
I'm receiving transmissions now, Captain.
Wait, no, isn't it? Isn't it? Oh, well, Spock says I'm receiving distress calls, and then he's like, I don't doubt it.
I don't
He just
doubt it.
goes like, um, okay, so another interesting thing, Doctor. This is our very first episode outside of the very first episode where it's going to go up right after we record it because I no longer have episodes
Oh,
in the bank.
no longer.
We
That's
are.
right.
I'm really grateful for the bank because relocating to Risa proved to be very difficult. They have very old weather grids here, and so there was recently a major storm that hit this part of the third continent, and well, it did a
Hmm.
little bit of damage. So settling in was kind of difficult. I still don't have any of my equipment. You can see actually it's in boxes over there, unpacked,
Right.
and yeah, it's
Are you getting
I'm
back your old habitat?
no, since I moved to Starfleet headquarters a few years ago, my lovely sister has taken over, and I don't have the heart to demand any kind of authoritative older sibling rank or
Oh,
pull any rank on her. So for the
I
time being,
see.
I'm in a very comfortable Ryson couch. But pretty soon I'll have my own quarters, and things will be back to normal within a few weeks or
All right.
months, possibly. I would imagine.
All right. All right.
But if hey, once in a while we have to rough it and go lo-fi here on the system, it's fine. And we don't have the luxuries of Starfleet Command here, but yeah, I think it'll suffice.
Yes, indeed.
um, a, a lot to uh, the, yeah, outside of our little Starfleet Boy mythology that I just went into there, and thank you, audience, for indulging that. There have been a lot of changes. I think in the last episode, I mentioned that it was my last episode from Seattle. So I moved back to Miami, actually closer to you, even though we're doing a hangout. There's now a possibility that you and I can actually do these discussions once in a while in person. Well, together in person, rather. You know what I mean. Anyways, I moved back to Miami, and it's very nice. Other than the fact that it's perpetually summer here, which some people I'm sure would enjoy.
And others don't.
Others don't, perhaps yet. But yeah, it's pretty cool. It's nice to be here. They have all the basics here, so it's not a bad thing. So today's episode is Remember Me. And
That's a Sarah McLachlan song?
I will remember you. That's that song that always plays on the what is it? Is it the ASPCA? It makes me anyways, it just instantly makes me cry. It's amazing how it's
is that the animal thing?
Yes.
I've given to that. I'm currently a
too.
member. Yeah.
Excellent. Very nice. Yeah. Good job. You should. That's a good cause to give to.
It is a good cause.
But before we go into the episode, I just want to say that I want to kind of, I don't know if anyone at CBS is watching this, and I don't mean the writers of Star Trek Discovery. I mean like executives that are in charge of the CBS All Access. I get what you're trying to do, but you're really crimping my style here because my friend, the doctor, can't watch Star Trek Discovery. You've only seen the first episode, right? And now This is not even. We've gotten to a point where you're convinced that you're willing to watch, but you can't even watch it because of a physical limitation, which is your television. You don't have a Roku, you don't have an Apple TV, and your television doesn't have the app for CBS. Is that correct? Am I correct in that?
That's correct. And I have a fairly I bought my TV like 3 years ago. It's within acceptable range of smart TVs, and
so you basically CBS, you're saying that my friend has to spend either somewhere between $70 to $150, depending on which platform he wants to get, or he's screwed. He can't watch Star Trek Discovery.
Yeah, I don't think it's fair. I think I'll give an example. My brother and I are huge Twin Peaks fans. When Twin Peaks came back, we bought a subscription to Showtime, and we did it through Amazon. And we signed up. I mean, obviously, we're paying for the Showtime app, but we signed up through Amazon, and I was able to watch it on my TV right behind me, and my brother was able to watch it, on his TV, and it was fine. I don't know why CBS All Access is so restricted to just those devices. I don't know why. For example, Vudu. This is another service where you can buy episodes one by one. That's how I ended up the last bit of Doctor Who. I was just buying them through Vudu, and it was fine. I don't know why it's so restrictive. I really don't.
It is a shame because I can tell you 3 episodes in, I'm very intrigued. I mean, there's a lot of discussion to be had about it and whether or not it's.
I would like to be part of that discussion. I very much would like to.
I would love to have you be part of that discussion. Well, I can't afford to buy you a television.
No, and it's not up to you to do that.
But if I could, I'm just letting you know.
Nor am I crowdfunding for one or whatever. It's not. My point is that they're limiting. My dad would like to watch it. I mean, I'm totally in favor of doing the show, of watching it. As a matter of fact, I'm trying to bring it up. I'm reading the novel.
Look at that.
Which doesn't really show up there, but I'm reading. Was it Desperate Hours by David Mack? I'm like 15% into it, and I'm interested. But
one of the nice things about being back on Risa is that apparently room service here. It's like it's a little breakfast here. Sorry, but anyways,
there we go.
Going back to that, I mean, again, it is. I don't think it was very well thought out. I mean, like I understand completely. The argument is like, hey, you're not, willing to. By the way, I paid the $10 and I'm fully subscribed, no commercials, all that stuff. I have other qualms. We should have a discussion about Star Trek Discovery, or maybe CBS All Access. Maybe that's the discussion we should have. But I did opt in the full way you can, and I'm one of the fortunate ones. I happen to have an Apple TV, so I can watch on my television. And you can't even watch it on your computer. Is that right?
I probably could, but I don't want to watch it on my.
I thought you don't have Windows 10, but I think there's like
I don't
another
have Windows 10. No.
Yeah, see, there's another.
You told me that. Yeah, that I apparently have to have Windows 10.
I think that's the case. I've heard that also being thrown around. Maybe you should try it, but you don't want to watch on your computer. I don't blame you.
Television should be watched on TV.
Well, especially such high production value as what they're putting into Star Trek.
Yeah, I don't want to watch it on my phone. That's
stupid. Another qualm, and I guess we're just gonna go into this. It's not even streaming in 4K. It's 1080, and it barely.
I couldn't believe when you told me that. When you told me that, I was just like, forget it. I'm done.
So, Star Trek Discovery is an intriguing show, worth the watch. If you're able to watch it, that's awesome. But unfortunately, it looks like there's a lot of people that are left out of the discussion, as you said, and that's really unfortunate and really sad. And CBS, it's cool that you want to use Star Trek fans to catapult this this service into success, but it's a bubble. It's not real. It's kind of like the real estate people did, where they created an artificial bubble of success. I'm pretty certain, because I plan to, when Star Trek Discovery finishes its airing, I intend to unsubscribe until the next season, whenever that happens, or if it happens at all. And if I really love the show, I'm just going to buy it on iTunes or Blu-ray or DVD when it comes out, and that's how I'll watch it moving forward. And that's how I would have preferred it, actually. Doctor Who, for example, is available. The only way I can watch Doctor Who is through iTunes, and I purchased the season pass. And within hours of its airing, the next day, I have the episode available, the newest episode. So I would hope that someone at CBS will see the forest for the trees and reconsider the way they're delivering the show, so that more fans can have access to it. And that's all I've got to say about that.
I agree. No, I completely agree. And I appreciate you bringing that up, because I think there's a lot of people out there who are not able to watch it. I mean, I know people at work who they saw the first episode and that's all they're going to watch.
It's a shame.
It's if you make it too hard, then
Yeah, and I get that everyone needs to upgrade to a certain technology at some point, but everyone has a smart TV or something. It's just, I think it's just not
it's pretty much everybody has Amazon and Hulu or Netflix. I mean, to me, the whole thing that it's on Netflix outside of the US
seems exploitive.
Right. I mean, to me, I'm like, okay, come on, guys, this is ridiculous.
Yeah, it is true. On that note, going from the ridiculous to the sublime, I think we can talk about Remember Me now. And if you'll indulge me so that I can eat my Ricean sandwich here, will you please?
I knew that was
coming. I'm looking for an excuse to eat the sandwich while it's hot.
So. All right, let me see if I can remember. Beverly Crusher has invited an old friend of hers, Dr. Quace, I believe is his name, on board the Enterprise to just spend time with him, because his wife had passed away. And as he boards the ship, they kind of have an interesting conversation where they, Dr. Quace talks about how adjusting to not having his wife there with him anymore, and Beverly kind of relates to that, because even though Jack Crusher had passed away a long time ago, still she can understand what her friend is going through. And she drops him off at his quarters, and stuff happens. And then when she goes to check up on him,
well, no, she decides to go engineering to observe a warp experiment
that her son is working on. Right. So Wesley's working, he's wrapping up a warp experiment And there's a great line where, Geordi's trying to rush him, and he's like, hurry up, Wesley, and he's
right.
like, do you want to be the one to tell the captain when he says engage that the warp engines are not working or something?
Also, we should have known there was trouble ahead because the warp experiment is based on Kaczynski's equations, and we all remember Kaczynski was a bit of a quack who worked with the Traveler.
Right. So this is a callback to the episode where no one, I think it's where no one has gone before, where no man has gone before. I forget
where no one
has gone before. And so there's a little the warp experiment, and Wesley kind of turns around and doesn't see his mom anymore and thinks, okay, well, I guess she left.
Right.
And it's done beautifully. And Dr. Crusher, we see her heading to meet up with Dr. Quace, and he's not there. And suddenly we begin next generation version of Diagnosis Murder, and Dr. Crusher is investigating the disappearance of her friend. And there doesn't seem to be any evidence of this guy ever having existed. And it's driving her crazy. And there's a very nice scene between her and Picard in his ready room where, I mean, she's really beginning to kind of doubt her sanity. And Picard's like, well, if you say this guy existed, this guy existed, and yeah, we'll go back to the starbase, and you're my chief medical officer, and I trust you. We'll go back, and we'll see what's going on. As they head back,
the whole crew, except for Worf, displays a lot of like support and kindness for her, despite the fact that none of this makes sense to them.
Well, Riker also kind of shows a little. There's a few expressions from Riker, like, "Doctor, have you been hitting the bottle a little too much?" But it's interesting that you should mention Worf because, well, no, before Worf goes missing, other people start going missing, including Dr. Salar.
I know who's mentioned. I knew there was mention of her. Remember, I was going crazy.
Yes.
But she's only in one episode.
She's only in one episode, but she gets mentioned here in this episode, and I think she goes.
She's definitely active duty.
She's definitely active duty. She's been on the ship for the whole 7 seasons. We just only see her once. So, anyways, now it's not just Dr. Quace. It's 2 other. Well, it boils down to that she's the only medical officer on board the ship, and again, the Picard and his crew kind of look at her like, well, yeah, of course, it's always been that way. Is there something wrong with that? And and Crusher is really beginning to doubt her sanity. She's like, now it's just, it's not just one guy. We're talking about, 7 people. And as they get closer to as they get closer to the starbase, more important people start disappearing, including Worf. And to make a long story short, it boils down to just her and Picard, and I think it's one of the best lines in the whole show where she confronts Picard and she says, "Does this make sense? Just the 2 of us on board this Galaxy-class starship with no crew," and Picard just kind of like nonchalantly is like, "Have we ever needed a crew? I mean, yeah, makes perfect sense."
It's actually kind of also an oddly appealing idea for a sideshow of just Crusher and Picard on a ship, on an empty ship, like traveling through the cosmos.
It's great. And so the episode then switches to outside the warp bubble, where because along the way, Crusher she's run into this what do you call it? So kind of like a little, I guess it's meant to be like a wormhole kind of effect that keeps sucking her into
it, or something. Right? It's trying to pull her into it. Naturally, she's resisting it.
Of course.
Looks like you're gonna die.
Of course, yeah, of course. So she resisted. But what's on the other side is our universe, the real universe, and it's her son, and it's the whole crew of the ship trying to get Crusher back. And Wesley is very vexed by this problem, and he doesn't know how to solve it. And into it suddenly comes dun dun the Traveler.
Nice. Oh, let me see that.
Oh
Like
yeah, the
carrying.
Traveler is right here. Yeah.
What is
And
that from the same original collection?
yes,
The
absolutely.
Oh
Yeah,
wow.
yeah. He came with a little station here
No way.
from the and
The
conveniently
station looks Romulan.
it does,
Um,
doesn't it? Because of the
yeah.
colors. The colors
Is
are
there an
wrong.
L cars on
Oh yes,
on that?
yes, there
Let
is
me
an
see.
L cars on it. So the L cars is there, but then he comes with this little
Hmm.
toilet. I don't know why he comes with a little toilet here. It's kind of
It's a pretty
strange.
weird looking toilet.
I know. It's kind of weird. But I guess it's meant to be a chair. So he arrives to basically tell uh, Wesley that he has to use the Force and
Yes.
take the
Right
take
down
the
to
thing away,
the visor. Close your eyes.
close your
Close your
eyes, shut
eyes.
off your all this stuff on the X-wing, and just are you looking for your cat? Oh, where's your cat, by the way?
He's here, but my
Arthur.
he's he's kind of being a little fussy, but it's okay.
Oh, you can
Now he
pick
has
him up
more
if you
attention.
want.
No, he's not. I think he wanted to come in, but he's not coming in.
Okay.
The wonderful my wonderful mother who's off camera here is trying to encourage him to come in, but oh, there he goes. He's
Oh,
in there. All right, there we go.
tell your mom I say hi.
I will. Anyways, go
Okay.
on.
So, um, it Crusher finds herself completely alone on the Enterprise, and it's just her and the computer. And oh, there's Arthur. There we go.
Hi, 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 everybody.
Cute little Arthur. Okay, we have to stop and look at Arthur. We have
I
to give
know. This
Emma
is
a
for
chance.
Emma.
This is for
Hey,
Emma.
this is your moment. Hi,
There we go.
hi. Let's say hi, Emma. Oh, he's totally like, he's about to be
Yeah,
like, I hate you.
yeah. You should put him down. He looks angry. So there's a lot of great lines between Crusher and the ship, where she asks the ship things like, I don't know, something like, "What is the mission of the Enterprise?" And then she's like, "Does it make sense that there's only one crew member on this ship?" Is kind of like, "Da-da. No, no answer available." And Crusher's like, "I got you." So she's realizing that there's a point where she has an epiphany where if there's nothing wrong with her, there's got to be something wrong with the universe, which I think is great. And
Yeah,
she connects the dots, and she realizes that the universe is
something.
actually contracting, and the ship gives her a graphic, and it shows that the universe is basically just I think it's just sort of like half the ship or something.
Right. It's the warp bubble at one point must have somehow was really massive, and it's been slowly collapsing. And you even hear the computer at one point say something like,
It was a
um,
hull breach or something.
fatal decompression." Like, yeah, it's
Yeah,
like crazy. So
yeah.
yeah.
There's a countdown because I think she only has like 7 minutes
Hmm.
of breathable air left or something.
Right.
And then on the other side, Wesley sees that the warp bubble is collapsing, and they only have moments to get her out. And Crusher realizes that the next time that rift happens, she has to let herself go and jump into it, and of course she does. And as quickly as the episode just ends. She gets out of the warp bubble and she hugs her son and she asks Captain Picard, what's the crew's compliment? And it's whatever, was it 600? No, it's not 600. 480 people or something, and she
Yeah,
says
it's
that's
yeah, it's
what
like
is it?
over 1,000 people, but yeah.
Oh, is it? Okay. Well, whatever the number is, it's the right number, and she's like, okay, that's great. And then
She's
that's it.
back.
Yeah. End
The
of episode.
that was a great summary. Thank you for letting me fill my tummy there while you while
You're
you talked.
welcome. You're lucky I remember the episode.
Yeah, I was really lucky because that was actually you nailed it. You did mention that the traveler came back. I
Yeah.
missed that part because I think I was distracted with my cat. But
Yeah, that's what I picked up the figure.
the writer of this episode, Lee Sheldon, brilliant
Yes.
work. Funny enough, is known for the recently the Agatha Christie games. I guess in 2000 there were video games for the Murder on the Orient Express,
Yes.
and things like that. But going back before this episode, he directed. I mean, he wrote for Simon and Simon, for Cagney and Lacey, for Quincy M.E., The Greatest American Hero, Nero Wolfe, Charlie's Angels, and Hardy Boys. So he loves capers and mysteries, and so
And
this
you
was like a
forgot the one I was hoping you would mention. He wrote the last episode of, and you're the only person that remembers the show, Blake's Magic.
oh, I was scrolling too fast, but you're right there. It is. Whoa, I do remember that show.
You're the only other person in the world that remembers that show. That was a great
I
show.
I'm pretty sure there's other people out there, so please reveal yourself in the comments below, audience.
I've never met anyone else who watched that show, but
That was
you
a
and
good
I watched it.
show.
That was a great
We
show. I
watched
love
it.
that show. Yes,
That was like something that I totally forgot about until right now.
I know.
1986.
I was
Jeez.
always impressed that you knew that show.
Well, yeah, because what's his name? Hal Linden.
The great Hal Linden. Thank you.
I'm pretty sure I was watching it with my parents because
That was a great show. A short-lived show, but
haven't they remade that show a little bit though in
have
different
they?
incarnations? Like, and maybe I'm having a
Not that
which
I'm
this
aware of.
episode, by the way, this episode, remember me, beautifully illustrates a phenomenon that has come to be known as the Mandela effect. So basically, we're
Oh,
gonna
we're
go
going to
into
go
this.
into this, are we?
We're gonna go into this just a little bit. So
Okay.
what
Okay.
happened with the warp bubble experiment there is basically what a bunch of people theorize or conspirize. Is that a word?
Yes.
That happened when the Large Hadron Collider went online
Which
for
you
the first
visited,
time.
did you not?
I did. I went to the
Because you've
source.
sent me a postcard, which I have
Yes,
somewhere here.
I I was very fortunate. You have to book tours way in advance to go. You know, you have to book in advance. It's ideal to book in advance. And I happened to be walking through Europe in 2010. I just happened to be walking through Europe in
Yeah, I
2010.
remember that.
And I made it to Geneva. I took a detour on purpose to go see the experiment. Unfortunately, or fortunately, the experiment was running that day, so I couldn't go down and see. Part of the tour is you actually get to go down and see
The collider.
the collider. But since it was running, that would have been very dangerous to do because basically it's like being exposed to I don't know, a warp field, naked warp field. No, I'm just kidding. You are being exposed to high levels of magnetic, electromagnetic, and magnetic energy. Anyways, the experiment was running that day, and I went in and asked if there was any kind of tour available, and there happened to be one, and there happened to be a cancellation, and so I filled the slot. It was totally free. It didn't cost anything. I don't know if that's the same today, but
It
it
didn't
was
cost anything? That's
no,
extraordinary.
yeah. Well, science things shouldn't. I mean, they're publicly funded, so
I
we've
know,
already.
but still, it's extraordinary.
No, I mean, I would have happily given.
It would have been that way here, I can tell you that much.
Well, I would have, yeah, apparently if CBS were running the show. But anyways,
Oh.
sorry,
Oh.
but anyways, the physicist on duty at the time, his name is Bill Murray,
I'd
and
forgotten
he gave
that. Yeah,
this
she did mention
wonderful
that.
tour of the grounds, talked about the experiment. I was at the site of the Atlas experiment. There was another experiment in France that was going on at the same time, and when I was there, he was really excited because they detected some, and this is where I'm going to be saying something that I don't really fully understand, but they detected muons. And so physicists out there who know the intricacies of a muon.
A muon.
A muon, yeah, it's a subatomic particle, and so they detected some, and Bill Murray was very excited when he saw that, and it was contagious, and I was excited for him and for humanity in general.
This is the postcard, by the way. This is the postcard you sent me from the collider, right? I say yes. I can read you what you said. Yes.
What did I say?
Doctor, I went to CERN. You have to book 4 months in advance. But I used some psychic paper, and I was let in. I got really lucky to get on a tour of Atlas, and you capitalized all the letters of Atlas
because it is capitalized.
And to top it all off, our guide was the lead physician on the Higgs boson experiment. It was very, very cool. Hope all is well back home. Yours truly, Sohail.
Oh,
there we go.
There you go. 2010. Wow. Whoa.
2010. Is that what it says?
7 years ago. 7 years ago. Yeah.
Wow. Fantastic.
I didn't realize I sent that postcard, and I forgot, rather, I should say, that I sent that postcard. So that's a really nice little reminder there of that little adventure. Starfleet Boy did not exist at the time, but timey-wimey, wibbly-wobbly. Anyways, so I'm hoping that this universe that the Mandela effect is taking place in is not collapsing like the universe that Dr. Crusher stated, but the reason for this elaborate theory or conspiracy is that it all comes from two interesting events or phenomenons that are occurring in our civilization. One is that it's called the Mandela effect because there's a huge group of people that feel or remember Nelson Mandela dying in prison, and there's another group of people that obviously in this, as is known by historical record, he did not die in prison, and he went on to do, he was liberated and went on to do some pretty amazing things. But that's the example that a lot of people use. They're so adamant that in their memory this happened.
Right.
The other thing is Sinbad, the actor, was apparently in a movie called Shazam, which many people remember watching. They've owned the VHS cassette, but somehow it's been erased from existence, and there's no physical evidence of this movie ever existing.
There's no evidence of this movie.
And Sinbad himself is like, you guys are all confused.
Sinbad's dead, right?
No, he's alive. I think he's alive.
He's still alive? Okay. It's just his career that's dead.
Yes, that's possibly true. But anyways, the point is that these are the kind of anomalous things that people are holding on to. And Doctor, you and I have a couple of these.
We have, yes.
We're not going to go into
about those, or no? We don't.
We won't go into detail, but basically, where we come from, or the memories that we have from our
universe,
is that Richard Marquand never died, and that Frank Oz, unfortunately, did die, which is weird. I'm so glad that Frank Oz is not dead because he's wonderful. But we had this weird memory of these two things that
it was on Entertainment Tonight.
It was on Entertainment.
I remember Frank Oz passed away, and I remember I came in. It was in sixth grade. No, I'm sorry, 7th grade. It was in 7th grade, and I came in, and I had a friend who was very much into Henson and Jim Henson and the Muppets and Spielberg and all that stuff. He says, "Oh my God, did you see about Frank Oz?" Like, yeah, I know. That's terrible. Frank Oz, passed away. And then years later, all of a sudden, I read that I don't know what movie it was. It was with live actors, not puppets. Oh, Frank Oz is director. I'm like, Frank Oz. it's got to be another Frank Oz. And then I check, and it's the same Frank Oz. It's the voice of Miss Piggy and Yoda. And I'm like, but he died. What happened? And
So
I cannot explain that.
I can't explain it either. And so connecting it back to this episode, that's basically what's happening to Dr. Crusher in a nutshell. She has all these memories of another existence or universe, but the bubble universe that she's in, those people are limited to what the parameters of that universe. So this new universe that we're in, we are or possibly in, but based on this theory, same thing's happening. All right, now that we've gone way off topic,
you realize that what viewers we've lost like a huge portion, because we've gone from Star Trek review show to just total nutcases.
Nonsense. No.
We're like we're in this whole other category now.
I do want to point out that I do take all of this with a grain of salt. I mean, Donald Trump proves that maybe this theory is actually real, and that maybe we need to try to return to the universe where sanity and like, you know, progress and like, you know, humanitarian things are happening. But yeah, I'm willing to like, you know, believe that maybe this is the right.
We need to get back to Richard Marquand.
We need to go back to Richard Marquand. So the Richard Marquand universe is the one sans Donald Trump as president. But we're not stating any political opinions here.
No, not at all. No. Us?
No. Oh, my cat did not like that.
Uh-oh.
Or he didn't like that we don't talk about politics. I don't know. Or he wants me to let him out. Let me let him out real quick.
Sure, go ahead. Go ahead.
Go ahead, buddy. Go. Okay. Anyways,
we're gonna get some weird comments on this one.
What did you think of the episode?
I think I mentioned to you prior to the hurricane and everything that this is one of my favorite episodes of the entire series, actually.
Wow.
A personal favorite. It's a personal favorite. I acknowledge it's not one of the greatest episodes of all time, but for me personally, I really enjoy this episode. I think, well, partly because it's a Dr. Crusher episode.
Yes.
And
by the way, Gates McFadden is very active on Twitter, and she's very wonderful to engage with and read her tweets and everything like that. So I just want to give a Starfleet boy shout out to you, Gates McFadden. We love you. You know that. If you ever listen to our show,
we were going to write a show just for you.
We were going to write a show just for you called
for another episode.
Star Trek Pasteur.
Oh, the Pasteur. Yes.
Which we get a little bit of that here. She finally sits in the captain's chair at the end when it's just her, and it was wonderful. Actually, I thought of that when she sat there. It was like a pretty cool moment. But go on. Sorry. So Gates McFadden, of course.
Yeah, I think her character is one of the best ones, and I think out of the whole cast, I think her and for me personally, her and Riker are the two I relate to the most. I think Crusher, by the virtue of being the medical officer, she's not always on the bridge. You know, I feel like there's a certain chemistry that most of the cast of characters, not actors, but the characters have, because they're almost always on the bridge together. Geordi, by virtue of being the engineer, has a great excuse to be on the bridge a lot because, you know, it's perfectly reasonable for the captain to want to know the status of the engines, right? It's not that, you know, I don't think Picard is really that consumed with the status of how many people are in sickbay. So
unless there's an emergency, right? Exactly.
Unless there's an emergency. So Crusher seems to be kind of the outlier in the group. Not that she's not tight with the group, but I feel like, and I think that happens with most groups of friends, is that there's, you know, there's a certain, you know, people have a certain tight relationship among friends and family, but there's always like one or two got people who are kind of on the fringe for one reason or another. And I think mostly I'm that guy in most groups I've been in. And I think that's why I relate to, you can testify to that. And I think that's why I relate to Crusher. I think Crusher is that person. She's the one that's kind of like, yeah, she is she is part of that core group, but she's, I guess I don't know if you want to call it the designated driver or or whatever. She's the one that is not she's not 100% in. She's kind of 90% in. And but she does have a lot of affection for the group, even though she's not very connected to it 100%. And you see that in the scene where she sits down and she's trying to get Picard to remember all of these people, and how she describes Worf as the big guy who never laughs. And the way she describes him, it's almost like an outs, again, it's um I just find the way that she relates to the other cast to be very interesting. And this episode shows that even though she is kind of on the outside a little bit, she has a great affection and a great kinship with that group. And when they all start disappearing from her life, it's interesting that it's happening to her, who's kind of like the outlier, the one out on the outside of that group. And I thought it was an interesting choice to have her be the one
that
to have that experience.
that goes through the experience. I do like
Right.
that it was a Dr. Crusher episode, and all of what you just said makes sense. It actually reminded me of a quote from Enterprise. I'm probably not going to get it right, but Dr. Flock says something like, "Well, the virtue, one of the things about my job is at some point everyone on the ship is going to come to me." Because
Right.
whether it's a mandatory health evaluation, annual health evaluation, or if it's like just the common cold, or an ailing knee, or what have you, at some point everyone does come to sickbay. But at the same time, like you said, it is true that she doesn't see them every day. It's not necessarily see them every day. Now, off duty, she has her relationships, and you could tell she spends probably a lot of time with Deanna, and she spends time with various members. But it looks like she and Deanna are close, and things like that. But yeah, very very cool. I agree with all of that. It also, the episode, there were things about it that I realized rewatching it this time that I never realized before. But the warp bubble was created from whatever she might have been thinking of at the time, and she was just fresh off of her encounter with Dr. Quace, where she, he's talking about one of his regrets. One of the things about being old is that he regrets the people that he's lost in his life not having spent enough time about her. And I thought, even though this was a very mysterious, there was a lot of mystery, you had to like do a lot of problem solving, the writing and the way that the acting was done and everything, Gates McFadden beautifully conveyed this like sense of loss, and you were seeing it happen in like an extended period of time. Basically, that analogy about what he says about growing old is, the thing about growing old is that you realize many of your friends are gone and you didn't get to spend time with them, is exactly what happens. And it's beautiful because the last moment she has with Picard, she's about to tell him, she's like, I don't know if I'm going to have the opportunity to tell you this again, but I just wanted to tell you. And then he's gone. She doesn't get to tell him, and which is, by the way, beautiful, extending their relationship. But also it goes back to this core theme of that was what she was thinking about when she got put into this warp bubble. And so the warp bubble, this universe that she created, was mimicking her very state of mind, her emotional state at that moment, where she was probably thinking about, well, that's really interesting. Like, am I spending enough time with this crew? Because I
Well,
am the
the
outlier.
other
You know what I mean?
thing,
Like,
yeah.
it's
Well,
like,
the other thing I was also thinking is maybe she was thinking about her husband.
right. Well, I'm sure
Is
it's,
yeah.
as we all know, a thought which could take place in a millisecond can sometimes encompass years of data. So it's true that you're absolutely right. It's probably all there. Um,
Mhm.
just to few little notes I took down when I was rewatching the episode. I noticed that the starbase was the one from Star Trek 3, and there's this whole thing about at some point the starbase gets retrofitted because the doors, the Enterprise D saucer section, I think the Enterprise A fits in it. So so like they had to at some point expand these starbase doors to let these these newfangled galaxy class ships pass through them.
Question, but it was over a different planet, though. It wasn't over.
Yeah, this was
right.
this particular starbase. Did I write it down? No, I didn't write it down. But this particular starbase was somewhere else. I think the
Right.
one over Earth might be Starbase 1 or Starbase 47.
Yeah.
It's one or the other. I thought that you in your summary you talked about how Geordi was getting impatient with Wesley, and I thought that was an interesting moment there to see Geordi getting frustrated with Wesley. And that rushing might have been where he made a mistake and it created the problem to begin with. So a lesson to young experiments. Well, not necessarily. I mean, Geordi needed the ship back, but to these young entrepreneurial experimenters out there, like, pace yourselves and give yourself enough time to do the experiment correctly. Otherwise, you can trap your mother in a warp bubble, which is not a fun thing.
No. Sage advice there.
You were talking about earlier how it was just beautifully where you're led to believe that Beverly just kind of walks away from the experiment at some point, and there's not much thought about it. What I also love is how the episode shifts. You're only seeing everything from Beverly's perspective at first, and then all of a sudden, I think it's after the second try with the rift. Then we switch to
you go into it and you kind of see them through the shadow. You
right.
kind of see silhouettes, and then you're on the other side of the mirror.
And it's it's so beautifully done. And I love the episode gets really it wraps up nicely. It doesn't feel rushed. It felt like just there's rare times. I think I understand why this is one of your favorite episodes, because it feels like it doesn't feel like it's 40 minutes. It feels like you're really you get really involved in it, and it feels like you're there for a very nice duration of time. You know what I mean? Like, you're not worried about, you're not noticing that they're trying to rush to get to the ending, or it doesn't feel like anything was cut out. It doesn't, it is a very nicely constructed, well directed, and the production and everything, it was just fell together really nicely. And I do think it's a nice break also, because we've been having which we're going to go back to in the next episode, but we've been having a lot of family centric episodes, and not that they're bad, they're actually good, but it's back to the sci-fi and the there's a lot of science in this episode. There's a lot, but there's also a lot of action and excitement, and again, that has to do a lot with the way that it was totally beautifully produced.
Yeah, and then the mystery. I think there's something appealing about. I mean, I like mysteries, and the idea of a mystery solving doctor is something that appeals to me as well. And you almost see this as like, I could totally see the Dr. Crusher mysteries or something.
I love that idea. I wonder if Chief O'Brien could be her sidekick, because I kind of really like where Chief O'Brien, everyone's indulging her, but Chief O'Brien, you could tell he's like, look, there's nothing wrong with me.
Yeah. The Irish came out in her. Yeah, you can see the Scots-Irish rivalry there. Like, look, Scottish lassie. I know what I'm talking about.
Except he's saying Scottish accent, but that's fine.
That's fine. Sorry, yeah. But
that's a good James Doohan. But
thank you. I don't know where James Doohan came from. But I really liked the way that the crew interacted with her when she was clearly asking for something that was a little nutty, you know, and the way Picard would yes, we'll all right, Beverly, we'll go back to the starbase, and don't worry, I
Do
don't
you,
think you're
do you
crazy.
think
And
Picard would have done the same for Counselor Troy? Because it feels like he wouldn't have indulged anyone else. I think their relationship gives it a little, whether this is like fair or not, and I know Picard tries to be fair, he has a different tone with Dr. Crusher. Like
he does,
yeah,
yeah.
and I feel like there was somewhat of a like I don't know. I just felt really like impressed by his tenderness. Again, this is an interesting thing because and genius, Patrick Stewart. Um, there's such a huge progression from season one to now. We're seeing Picard in season four, and I can see like there's so much more tenderness to him. A little bit more like he's a little bit more. He yells a lot less. It's like, there's just something different about Captain Picard. I don't know. He's coming into some kind of like comfort,
Uh-huh.
with the crew.
With
And
the
I think he
crew.
remarks on that later on too. Is it in one of the films where I don't remember where it was, but something, maybe it's later, maybe I'm thinking of a later episode where someone thinks he's gotten soft with his crew or something like that. Is it the Jellicoe episode? Maybe, I'm not sure.
Oh,
But
maybe.
it could be. We'll see when we get there. But anyways, I liked how he indulged her too. But I also did like that the episode showcased an impatience, and that was by especially Worf, O'Brien, Riker. I didn't notice it much, but now that I'm thinking about it, he did question her a lot more than
Yeah,
everyone else was.
because
So, but
what she was saying really sounded wacko.
wacko. But then again, they've encountered such weird things before. You can also kind of see why they're indulging her as well. And as Counselor Troy says in that one scene, she's like, she's she's saying, look, the worst that can happen is we're going to be a little late to our destination. Because if something really is happening, it's worth investigating, and you're not crazy. The fact that you're questioning your sanity, it's pretty likely that you're not insane.
Right. But by
So
the same token, you have all of these, I mean, all of these crew members are tasked with certain, with the observation of certain things, and nobody can find any um evidence of what she's saying. I mean, they can't find any evidence of this guy ever having existed, and then later on the other people, and you know, all they have is Wesley's experiment and the possibility that it did something, but there's no. I mean, even Jordy says, we've run diagnostics and we can't find anything wrong. So
Doctor,
it's
your word has always been good enough for me.
another classic line. There's a lot of great lines in this episode, and Crusher has a lot of them. And again, I think, especially by the end of it, Gates McFadden and when it's pretty much just her and the computer. Uh, she's a one woman show, and she holds her
funny,
own.
funny enough about that. I think we've talked about this before, but wasn't there an original concept for the Next Generation where it was proposed that like the ship actually would just run itself, and that even the layout of the bridge, yeah, I do remember this. We talked about this. Even the layout of the bridge reflected more of a lounge than a
Yeah,
than a bridge. Now, let's just say that we are lucky enough to get a Star Trek series that takes place um,
in the future.
beyond in the future. It looks like we never will, but let's just say we get a Star Trek series that takes place in the future. Is that something you think that audiences would accept? Would you accept a ship that no longer needs like a helm necessarily, or things like that, where the ship just kind of runs itself and then it takes these people on this journey? Or do you think do you think that's even plausible, or that we'll always need some kind of manual intervention in flying something as complicated as a starship?
I think
Because apparently
uh
Picard, and Crusher in the regardless of the universe's being a bubble universe and everything like that, they are actually running the ship. Like the ship's on autopilot, and
Yeah.
Captain Picard's doing everything just through voice command, I assume. And as you can see later on, even Crusher just uses voice command to tell the ship to do things. And
Yeah. Well, I guess I mean, if you look at the Alien movies, though, those ships seem to be pretty self-run. I mean, the crew's in hibernation,
oh, that's
and
true. Good point.
I mean Prometheus and a lot of these alien movies. I mean, Prometheus, you have David running around, but what seems like Mother runs most of it. So I think the audience might accept it. I think the closest we'll probably get to it is maybe something like Blake Seven, where Blake Seven, the ship is sentient and runs itself, but you do have kind of the crew kind of lounging about in this couch in this lounge area in front of the giant computer. But every once in a while, like when the systems go down or when they're under attack, they do take their stations, because you just do feel like you're more
In
you feel more
control.
in charge of your own destiny if you yourself are flying the ship. So you always
But
have
you
the
could
option.
but you could make mistakes, and so. But I guess you're right. You do feel
Well,
more
do you have
more in
more
charge.
faith in a computer or in yourself?
Well, that's exactly the question. I
That's
mean,
the debate, right?
that is the debate. So yeah, interesting. We'd love to know what any of you who've made it this far into our episode. We'd love to know what you think about that concept, and I'd love to hear some ideas about what you think of future Star Trek shows. Technological landscape would be like. That would be a neat discussion to have.
What did you think about the Traveler coming back? It's a big deal.
So I thought it
But
was
it
actually
wasn't.
pretty. I
It
thought
was
it
a
was
big deal
actually
for the time.
pretty awesome. And it this is where again it kind of made sense for him to come back too, because they like nicely they put in that nice little line about Kaczynski that we spoke about earlier. So it only makes sense that Kaczynski's experiments only seem to work with the assistance of the Traveler, and
Mhm.
so bringing him back was a natural thing. But I do like it. I thought it was very intriguing at the time when now that we know what happens, of course, but at that time I thought it was really crazy. It was like, whoa, the Traveler's back and Wesley's phasing in and out, and he has the same abilities. What are they going to do with Wesley? Is he a Q? What is he? Like it was a really neat thing. So it's still cool to see the Traveler. I do love when he's explaining what's happening, like what's happened to Dr. Crusher, and Riker says, "What the hell is that supposed to mean?" In fact, there were two moments in the show that were delightfully out of character, or for Star Trek in general. One was when they oh no, that's in the next episode. Sorry, I get sometimes I get these things mixed up, but we'll in the next episode, oddly enough, they're going to go rescue this ship that is having a warp malfunction, and at first they have like 10 minutes, and then it like the countdown decreases to 3 minutes, and the people say, "Oh well, Enterprise, thanks for trying," which is so weird. It's like that's what you're the moment you're gonna die, you're like, "Thanks for trying." But then in this episode, the Riker remark about like for Riker to say, "What the hell is that supposed to mean?" I thought was like really awesome.
Once again, I reiterate, I really identify with Riker and Crusher, and that's perfectly illustrates my point. I would be going, "What the hell?" People say, "What the fuck is that supposed to mean?"
It was really great.
It was a
I
great
thought that was
episode.
I thought that was really fun. But also at that time, what the concept that the Traveler is describing, there's a lot of theoretical physicists that actually have developed theories about the multiverse that are very similar to what
Yes, that's true.
what we're hearing here. And again, I always say that post Doctor Who second time around audiences are a lot more open-minded about some of these concepts that were very emergent and very alien and kind of hard to wrap your mind around when they came out, when the show came out originally. And I think that that's the wonderful thing about Star Trek: The Next Generation is, and why it's still so relevant today, is that like it was so far ahead of its time in terms of like the concepts that it was dealing with, and like the science that the science consultants were amazing on the
Yeah,
show,
absolutely.
because all of this science is now, all of this stuff is now here, you know what I mean? And so hats off to you, and I hope Star Trek Discovery does the same thing. You know, I hope it's like stuff that's like, huh, what the hell is that supposed to mean? Which, by the way, we do have some of those moments now in Star Trek Discovery. But like in 10 years, we'll be writing on spores to SETI Alpha 7, and so you know.
Oh, let's not talk about the spores.
So anyways, I did like the watching it this time around. It, you know, knowing the reveal of the Traveler already, it was still cool. But that first time, it was, I remember being very like intrigued and excited, and wondering, oh wow, what's gonna happen to Wesley, you know, and that kind of was a nice seed that they planted, which does pan out and develop, and then it gets strange, of course, after that.
Well, let me ask you, because the apparently the addition of the Traveler was a last minute thing,
Wow.
and I know I read it somewhere. I'm not seeing it here in the book, because right now I'm kind of glancing through the book. The great
The companion.
Larry Nemesek. According to this, the story is the only contribution by Lee Sheldon, his short term as a producer, and it began as a subplot for Family, the episode Family, which seems kind of
Oh,
odd how they would have. I don't know how they would have done that, unless that would have been the B plot on the Enterprise while
well,
Picard was
because
on
it's
the
stopped
planet.
at a, because it's the Enterprise is the warp bubble. It kind of makes sense because the warp bubble experiment happened. They're doing it on the space station, which, you know, it could have easily have been the Earth space dock as well.
But the
But
whole
I'm
thing is
glad
that
they
the
went.
ship goes and has to come back to the space station, but Picard
But
is
I
on
think
the
they would have
planet.
just written. I think it might have been just written where it happens all in space dock. Like it could have easily,
Oh, gotcha.
the ship could have easily just not gone anywhere.
Right.
And the same outcome would have happened, is that, you know, the space would have still been shrinking
In her world or universe.
in her ways, and it might have been interesting because then you could have explored some of space dock and things like that. So yeah, I could see it happening, but I'm
That's
glad they
interesting.
didn't do it, because I think it would have taken away from the emotion of, it would have been a
Of
weird
both. Yeah.
juxtaposition, you know, like
It
yeah,
would have
it
been
would
really weird. Yeah. It would have been really weird. Yeah, you're right. I'm glad they
have
didn't do that. Yeah. Apparently, Gates McFadden did all her own stunts in this episode.
oh,
And it was after one of those stunts that she learned that she was pregnant.
oh, wow.
Yep.
Her son is a very accomplished musician and
Really?
concert musician, classical music. I think he might be a violinist or a violist, and he,
Oh, it's cool.
yeah.
All right.
So her real life son, she calls Will Wheaton her space son.
That's funny. Um, yeah, and it says, yeah, I mean, pretty much, it just says that Gates McFadden did a fantastic job. Basically, is what he says here. It does mention the fact that we also learn about Beverly's background, including the fact that she interned with Dr. Quace only 15 years ago. In other words, after Wesley was born.
Oh,
Interesting.
oh yeah.
Yeah. Do you think the fact that um, Because I mean, the Traveler is certainly a big deal for the character of Wesley, and adding to that character, and that he has some greater power, destiny, whatever. But the fact that the Traveler was just kind of bookended in the back, and do you think Wesley got short changed here in the sense that I mean, really, he could have had a whole episode. It's all we never really had a true. I mean, we have one episode much later in the course of the show, but before then, we don't really have another episode that deals with what potential he has, his power, or whatever you want to call it. And this episode really, it's just kind of like slammed in there at the end as a Deus Ex Machina to get Crusher out, and then that's it. Like, next episode, back to normal. Crusher's in the background again. Wesley Crusher, mind you. Do you think he gets robbed a little bit?
I don't know. To me, learning that it was a last minute decision, I think doesn't change that on screen it looks tight, like it looks like it was intentional. And I kind of like that we don't just get out of the blue. Like, I don't know what the original intention would have been, but would Wesley have phased in and out, and would he have just like been inspired by the Traveler and tried to do what he did? And I think it would have been really good too. But I don't think it hurts to have him there. The character's a really cool character, and it kind of also suggests that there's like different levels. Star Trek: The Next Generation deals a lot with these beings with extraordinary powers. I mean, you have the unnamed alien with the Husnak episode. You have the Traveler. You have the Q. And then you have like charlatans like Ardra, who comes across as. Did we ever do the Ardra episode? Do you know what I'm talking about?
No.
Okay, that's the one where the alien is pretending to be the devil on this planet, and she's come to take...
we haven't done that episode yet. No.
Oh.
No. I know what you're talking about. That's
okay. Well, anyways, the point is that I think that it is neat to have these kind of like characters pop in every once in a while, but would it have been necessary? No, maybe not. I think I would be curious to know what Will Wheaton thinks if his character was robbed. But as far as from a viewer's perspective is concerned, I thought that it played out really well. I did like. There's a moment that rewatching is so much fun because then you start to pay attention to other things, right? And Picard comes down to observe the final attempt in engineering, and when the Traveler first starts doing his thing where he doesn't really even touch buttons, he just kind of touches the console, right? The expression on Patrick Stewart's face is so delightful. He's like, oh, like, what is going on here? We're putting our faith into this, like, and then of course he transfers to wonder when they start to do the phasing thing, but
which he's seen before, hasn't he?
I don't remember if he was in the engineering.
He was there. Okay. He's seen it before. You should be surprised.
He shouldn't be surprised. I did like that when Dr. Crusher came through, and after, of course, she hugs Jean-Luc, she and Wesley have a very special kind of like way of hugging. Like when they see each other, they do that head touching thing.
Yeah.
And I thought that was really cute, and like it made me realize that you come to appreciate these like nuances in the performances of the characters, and the fact that they included that also was delightful in terms of the fact that it's consistent throughout the show. And I wonder if it's the actors who are remembering to do these things, or if the writers and the producers are like, all right,
I think it's the actors.
You got to do the way you guys show affection is very unique, to your characters, and I love that they do that.
I give credit to the actors. I think it's probably them.
I think so too. It would be lovely to find out. Yeah. It's hard to tweet. Apparently, tweet limits are going to be expanding, so I'll be able to ask more detailed questions. But I think that's one that I might tweet to Gates McFadden and see if we get an answer on that. Yeah, so overall, I guess we've come to the part of the show where we give our ratings here, Doctor.
Well, as I said, for me, I've always loved this episode. Uh, personally, it's a 10, but for the sake of the show, I'm gonna give it a 9.
I don't like that. I don't like
No?
that. I think you should go with
Okay, well then for me it's a
it,
10.
yeah, yeah, man. Just do it.
Okay. All right, it's a 10.
It's either a 10 or a 9. You gotta pick.
It's a 10. No, for me it's a 10. I love this episode.
Gary's gonna be
I
so
can watch this
happy.
episode over and every year perennially. I
That's
never get
awesome.
tired of it. I think a lot of it has to do with McFadden and her performance. And I actually love the story. I think it's a story that, it could have worked with any of the characters. It's a strong enough story that it could have worked with any of them. But it works best with her.
With her, yeah.
And
Well, and it's about time the Doctor Crusher
yeah,
gets a whole episode. She'll have a few more, which are Doctor Crusher seems to get into some really interesting situations, as we'll find out in a future episode where she has an intimate relationship with a gaseous alien. Anyways, just saying. I would say I have to say that in my memory of the entire series from my original watching and even subsequent watching, the show was always remarkable. But I don't know where I don't know that I would have like thought about it again, because there's something about it that I really love, but it never ended up on my lists, top tens or things like that. But watching it again and like seeing the nuances and seeing how wonderfully crafted it is, it really raised my opinion of it. And I agree with you. I would definitely, I might make it an annual thing as well. Maybe we can do a Dr. Crusher Remember Me celebration once a year. Uh, remember me. Anyways, I was originally going to give this a 9, but I'm going to go ahead and join you in your 10.
what?
I am going to join you, and we're going to lock this in as a 10 episode for Starfleet Boy. So when Database
Wow.
Boy finally gets all the ratings together, we'll at the end of our journey we'll do like this one. We'll put all the tens together, and we'll see what we still think at the end of our journey. It'll be a fun thing to do.
Wow.
So that's all we've got to say about this episode. Again, highly recommend that everyone watch it. Would love to hear your thoughts. Please comment down below or email us. Head on over to Starfleet Boy. It's interesting to be timely and live, and so we're gonna try to keep it sort of like that. But I like to have a little cushion. So we'll say a Star Trek Discovery discussion soon. So, Doctor, live long and prosper, and we'll see you next time.